So I know both Equitas and Thrive share a vision for like a world with less hiring bias. Hopefully, we'll get in there. And so, like, how would you say, how would your Thrive actually minimize bias in the hiring process? Can you just give a little overview about that?
Yeah, so ThriveMap, we operate at the start of the hiring journey. Okay, so after candidate is applied, typically our assessments are more often used at that point instead of a CV review.
Okay.
So we know that the data on CV, it shows that there's a lot of bias, opportunity for bias in terms of reviewing a CV. And the reason for that is on a CV, there's lots of non-job relevant information, such as names, education, hobbies, but there's also a lot of information that can be inferred from those things, such as someone's age or their gender or ethnic origin. So it means that candidates basically are progressed via an assessment, which is progressed on their merits to do job relevant tasks and scenarios, rather than their past experience, which is obviously it isn't as predictive. Full stop. So the main reason is, look, the assessment is a more predictive way of selecting candidates to the next stage. But similarly, it's more objective, and it doesn't have the same opportunities for bias as a CV review. We do also do some other things in our assessments to ensure that candidates feel included throughout the process. So in many of our assessment narratives, they're very visual and rich in terms of the media content that goes with it. So we customize everything in it for the client. So that can be rich background imagery of people of different backgrounds, different ages, etc., doing the job. So that if I'm a candidate that's typically applying for a job that's maybe mainly populated by male individuals or younger individuals, but I'm seeing that I'm an older candidate and there's someone doing the role that's in my age demographic, I'm much more likely to want to proceed to interview if I've seen that, rather than thinking, oh, this isn't for me, I don't recognize any of the people in this assessment. So we do lots of subtle things like that to ensure that everyone feels included along the way. And we're also really focused on only measuring job relevant characteristics. So where an organization goes, oh, we want to look for this trait or this type of behavior, we always come back to what people are actually doing in the role and ensure that we can measure it in that context. Otherwise, we won't include it in the assessment.
Amazing. That's awesome. And I like the fact that you're also bringing inclusion into your assessments, because it's like, obviously you're also helping reducing bias, but you're also making people feel included in the whole process from beginning to the end. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. I don't know if there's a lot of companies actually doing that, but you guys are doing it spot on, so that's great.
Yeah, we had one of our first customers actually has a very male dominant population. It's a role that is very hands-on and requires a lot of kind of technical knowledge. And they had a hiring process which involved a CV review. It's a company in the US and a resume review. We introduced our assessment, and actually, since the assessment is obviously blind of someone's gender, and one of the first images you see is a female candidate doing this job, they have actually seen a 60% increase in the number of female applicants being hired since the assessment went live. So the fact we're able to get more females through to interview, because the assessment is not filtering out based on preconceived ideas around whether a female candidate can do the job, they're actually seeing more candidates at interview, and subsequently a 60% increase in the number of female applicants being hired. So we were absolutely delighted by that.
That's amazing. That's really good. To see the difference you're making. Amazing.
It feels good to see that.
No, that's great. So yeah, obviously I love the idea that how even with like Equitas, we're all about reducing bias, as well as yourself reducing bias. But what I want to understand is is there any other technologies or tools that you would recommend personally that could actually help with reducing bias in hiring, or just trying to improving diversity as well in hiring as well?
Yeah, well, I think we're a powerful combination. So, you've got ThriveMap on the first stage of the screening to ensure the applicant pool included is the best people for the role. And then you've got you guys obviously on the interview side to ensure that shortlist, the best candidate from those candidates that have come through get selected. And that process from start to finish is as fair and objective as it can be. I think, yeah, that's a really powerful combination. In terms of other tools, I don't know if there are many tools out there I would go, you've got to use this, got to use that. But I think what does need focus from talent acquisition is ensuring that candidates are being attracted from a range of diverse talent pools that represent people with different perspectives and heuristics. So, I think things like dropping degree requirements and years of experience from certain job adverts is a really good start. Looking at the language that is being used in those job adverts, there is actually a tool, we'll recommend one called Textio, which is essentially a job advert reader, and they will look at the language to kind of infer whether it's fair and balanced in terms of the way the job advert is written. But for me, I think it is about ensuring you're not just advertising in the same places, that you're actually going out and proactively targeting people with different perspectives to apply, because the main barrier is in people believing that they have the opportunity or should apply in the first place. And I think that's something that the TA needs to get better at.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. One thing I was going to mention, I think I forgot to ask, was about, so you see with regards to like these assessments, which I think are a great idea, because in comparison to a CV where you have to actually list your experience, and I think that's a lot of people kind of do get put off when they see the amount of experience that's required, 5 years in this, or at least 2 years in this, and maybe they just don't, maybe they come from a different background and want a career switch and they don't have any experience in this. But what if they can really excel in your assessments and stuff, and then they can see that, then the company can see that they can actually do the job. That's the main thing, right? Companies should be looking at if a candidate can actually do the job rather than their experience. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, the only reason we put years of experience is to try and filter applicants down to normally a more manageable, more accurate number. But years of experience isn't necessarily a predictor of job performance. Certainly for frontline hiring, often you'll see things like 1 year, 3 years experience for a job that clearly doesn't require that. And actually, when you speak to the organization, it's just because it's always been in there. They've copied and pasted it. I think what does make a difference is changing that mindset to going, okay, we don't need experience. What we need is people with a certain number of characteristics, certain level of skill, and a real desire and commitment to want to do the work, and a good understanding of doing the work. And I think then what you can do is use an assessment to do that initial screening, but it means that you can go out to a much wider talent pool. You can go, look, rather than these people that 1 year's experience plus, we can go to anyone across any industry and get them to apply, and let's see if they think it's a good fit for them, while simultaneously assessing them against our hiring criteria. And we saw a big increase in that during the pandemic. We saw a lot of people switching careers. And unfortunately, the current structure of applying with experience is a real bottleneck to that social mobility and the opportunity for companies to recruit. So, we believe that an assessment in place for those frontline roles is going to really open up those talent pools for organizations. We've seen it already.
Amazing. And that's just one thing I wanted to clarify. So that's amazing. Awesome. Wow. What an interesting discussion. Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for the insights. It's been great having you on.
Thank you for talking with me.
No worries. Hope to chat again soon.